up, but we've got a quick 30-minute, a short 30 minutes to kind of go over a couple, just some good resources that all realtors need to know. One, we're going to do one is the Baldwin County GIS maps. And I'll kind of show you, obviously this is the address to get in there. It's the Baldwin County website, but specifically they have this map page. If you go to baldwincountyal.gov/maps, it'll get you into this. And this, of course, they have all the zoning maps and planning maps and all that stuff in here. And I would recommend getting there and playing around on that stuff if you need it. But the big thing is this Baldwin County GIS map viewer. And I'm hoping that this, there we go, cool. Sometimes if your computer is not set up to view this, it doesn't have certain things, you have to install some stuff, but this looks like we are good to go. So once you go in there, just go to map. And what this is a resource for agents to pull up, especially when you're dealing with land or other things, to pull up ability to pull up contours. A lot of times when people are asking you about, hey, is that lot level, or is these 3 acres, are they level? You can use this to go pull up contours and imagery and see what trees are on the land. Is it mostly forested, wooded? But you can search on this map by if you know the owner's name, if you also know the PPIN number or parcel number, you can go and plug those in and search those things, which makes it really easy. Another thing, and I'll show you some tools you can do if you're listing a lot. A lot of times you're probably gonna have some pictures. You might have some drone video and things like that. But if you're ever listing a lot, you also probably want to add a picture of what that lot looks like on the Baldwin County GIS map. And I'll show you how to get to those things where you can actually do a PDF or a picture file on this service as well.
Can I give you a lot that I had listed?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have listed.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at it by address.
Okay. So we're gonna use an example real quickly here. Let's see, search by find address.
Yeah.
Okay.
10250 Bay Haven Circle.
Bay Haven Circle, right there. That one, I guess it's the same thing. But so if you know the PPIN number, if you know the address, you know an owner's name, and sometimes this can help you as well. We probably in this short time can't go through all the features here. But if you know a person has 5 or 6 properties, and you're not sure, or you can type in an owner's name, and it'll show you all the properties that the owner owns down in this little bottom section. You can pick which one. In this case, you had a specific address you were looking at, and so you type the address in, hit search, and there's the property that pulls up. And so you can scroll in, scroll out, and see that property where it is. But the other thing you can do on this is now you can actually, let's see, I need to move this over here. There we go. You can click on these different fields. If you want to look at the contour data, you can click on that, and it's a little slow right now, but it will actually show the contours.
That's where my question was, is when it displays the contours, if you pull the image out or go and zoom in closer.
Yeah, the contours will only go in so far. If you try to zoom in too far, the contours go away.
Disappear.
So just, this thing's way too touchy.
The numbers like 5, they're in along those contours. Is that the elevation?
No, these right here. No, these are
no, I'm not talking about that.
That 5, 6.
That black. See those black dots?
Yes.
Numbering?
Yes, the black.
4, 5.
Okay, so what I was asking is that when you look at a contour map, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with contours, but a couple things to note. Number one, you can see, I don't think we can scroll much further. You can see these numbers. That's a 4, that's a 5. That's elevation above sea level. The other thing to note about contour maps is the closer these lines are together, that means the steeper the incline, because every line is a different elevation. So this right here is a pretty steep slope, but then it's flat all through here. Same with this lot. It's pretty flat, except right up front, it looks like there's a drop off up front, possibly.
On like 17 to the left of that area there, what's the elevation in that?
Here?
To the right on the lot we were talking about.
To the right?
To the left of that that squiggly line that's on it, sort of.
Well, what is this elevation?
Yeah. What's
Well, with this line here, see the 4 is on this
Oh,
line?
that's 4.
So that's 4 right there. This line right here is a 5 on this line. So that line's 5.
Okay.
So from here to here, it increases by 1
It's a little
foot,
bit slow. Okay.
but not much. That's pretty
Okay.
flat. So yeah, you get the concept here is you have an ability to now go into any lot you want to look at, and you can look at contours. You can also click on imagery, which will actually take an aerial photo. And apparently our internet here is very slow on this computer. But now you can look at, now this was a 2018, so if any construction's been done on that since then, it won't have that update. But you can get a pretty good look at this lot, what it looks like.
Going back to the contours, can you print that
Okay.
image?
Yeah,
with
so
the
I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
So all this, which is very, when you're doing a lot listing, when it's just a house listing, most of the time you have pictures of the house, pictures, aerial, a drone, whatever footage you guys want to do, videos. But when you're doing lot listings, I would highly recommend you doing a contour map and putting that as a picture on your MLS. One of the things down here is map tools. If you click on this map tools up here, there's a print button, and you can basically, whatever screen you're on, you kind of want to try to get this as large as you could do it and still maintain what you want to see. You just hit this print button, and it's going to be creating a PDF right here. Okay. Now you can also, if you don't want to do it in PDF format, you want to put an MLS picture, change this to JPEG, print. So there's a PDF version that you want to, maybe put in .loop or send out to people potentially through email. And then this right here is creating a JPEG version of it, which then you can save and load up into MLS. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I actually printed the lots without the contours, but I didn't. Okay. Where I was trying to print the contours.
Yeah, so this print function down here is fantastic for getting. If you want to do imagery, if you want to go back here and do instead of the contours, do an imagery, and just so now you've got basically a free aerial photo that you can put into MLS if you don't pay for a drone photo or an aerial. You got an aerial view of this lot, and just go down here, and I want to do a JPEG print of the screen, and now you can throw that picture in MLS as well. Boom, there you go.
Cool.
Okay. So a great little tool. Of course, clear print history. So expand this. That's all it's there now. But anyway, this is a way to search for properties. If you know the owner's name, it's a way to get some information about the lot as far as contours, images. Just a nice little tool to give you something, especially when you're dealing with just a lot. And when you don't have 25 pictures of a house, I would highly recommend using this function. Okay. This also, if you go into it, you can look at a lot of the stuff that's on the tax records. You have access to it right here as well. Property damage reports. That's interesting. I've never seen that one on it, but homestead assessments. It goes into the tax record site. If you want to log in and go in there, you could do that. Now, what's easier? Well, first, before I move on to the next thing, is there any questions on this one? Okay. You guys are all muted to me, so I think you'll have to unmute yourself to speak. So if you have any questions, just let me know. So instead of going through this way, it's tax records. To me, the much better way to access tax records is a system called Delta Computer Systems. And you guys probably are familiar with that. I'm sure if you've been doing this at any time. Delta Computer Systems is a company, third-party company that takes a lot of the tax records and puts it into a system that we can use. And you can see where it does Baldwin County, has several other counties in Alabama, also a lot of counties in Mississippi too. So if for some reason you have some other stuff in different states you want to look at, you might check here and see if you have access to that information. Notice it does not have Mobile.
If it does not have that county, Is it advisable for us to list the property? Because I got one in Butler County, but it doesn't show up.
Okay, so that's a separate question that I know outside of this scope, but that any property, anything you want to list that's not in Baldwin County, you got to make sure that that's a county that you can allow to list in our MLS. Baldwin County MLS typically only allows you to list in Baldwin and immediately surrounding counties, unless, however, that county is supported by another MLS. If you're up in Butler and it's not, that might be a Mobile MLS typically, then you're not allowed to list it in Baldwin County MLS. So that's a question for Baldwin, for Jay Jennings or someone over at
I called him, but I didn't get a solid answer. I didn't feel like.
Okay.
Anyway.
So Baldwin County, when you're under tax for Delta Computer Systems, under the tax system, let me go back up. It shows Baldwin County. Obviously, that's our mainstay of business. It does not have Mobile. Just as a side note, there is a separate Mobile tax site. That's not for this discussion, but there's a separate one for Mobile. But in this site here, you will love being able to navigate through Delta Computer Systems because it has a lot of the information for you. Now remember, you also get a lot of this in the MLS, in the CRS. The CRS tax records has a lot of information there that's easy to get to. However, what CRS doesn't have access to is maybe deeds and all covenants and all those kind of things. And I'm going to preface this when I go into real property taxes, I go into appraisals, deeds and records. This is where you're going to find a lot of the covenants for subdivisions. If you need to try to find those when you're listing the property, I would absolutely recommend, if the seller doesn't have a copy of the covenants, go and find this and get that while you're listing the property. Don't wait till someone asks it for you in an offer. But the deeds and records, all these pages look very similar, whether you're in deeds and records or you're searching other areas.
So if you were looking up the covenants and restrictions for subdivision, is all you need to enter in the subdivision?
I'll get to that. You're jumping ahead a little bit. What I want to say on this is, if you know the name of the person, or and this is not as easy as say, hey, type in a property. If you know the name of the person, which if you know the property address, you can get that through CRS, and then you can open up the basic tax record and you can get the name of the people. If you need other information about this property, like looking up, because if you're listing the property, you probably want to see the deed to make sure that that person, 99% of the time, if you don't look at the deed, you're probably okay. But there are times out there that, and I've seen it with other agents over the last 5 or 6 years, that someone goes to sell the house and calls you in a listing appointment, you write up a listing agreement, and that person does not have title to the house. It happens. I won't go through examples of it in detail, but or it's maybe one person, the one person has interest, but there's 3 others that do. You have to know everybody that has interest in that house and make sure they all sign a listing agreement. Yeah. Don't get yourself in a situation where you list it, you get a contract, and then you find out later, oh crap, this person, I need 3 other people's signature on this.
Yeah, a lot we were just looking at was entering the state, and I didn't realize that.
Okay. So if you know the name of the person of the house, I'm just going to pull up, I'll just pull up mine to make it easy. You can do partial. You can put if you know grantor or grantee, doesn't matter, or just do partial name search. And I'm going to say one thing about this before I go any further. We all know when we do Google searches, the more detailed information you put in, the faster you're going to get your answer, right? This is absolutely opposite of that. The more detail you try to put in, the less likely you're going to find a dang thing. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to put in my name, just John Kimbrough, and submit. It's going to have every Kimbrough out there in Baldwin County. So maybe I'm going to go in there and say Kimbrough John. Oops, that's interesting. I'm not sure why that didn't pull me up there. That's actually interesting. I'm going to try it up here. This keyboard is smaller than mine. Kimbrough John. So now I've put in more specific information. So there's all the John Kimbroughs, and I can find. I think I can find mine. Okay, I did not find mine. It's somewhere, it should be right there. It should be, oh, here, deed. That's it, yeah, okay. So I found my deed now. By pulling up my name, I found my deed. But if I try to go in here and say Kimbrough John, and then I want to go in here and put subdivision, Quail Creek, and what I'll give you a hint on this subdivision. It's a drop-down box, and you can scroll down as much as you want. The easier thing to do is start typing, and just don't stop. Just start typing. Quail Creek. It'll get you there. And you can choose these if you want to. If you don't know which Quail Creek or you don't know the subdivision, then I would leave this blank. Go back and put it up as none. But if you start putting other refinements down here, I just want to look at deeds, or I just want to look at mortgages, or I just want to look at that. A lot of times, the more information you put in here, the less likely you're going to find something. Now, and now I'm going to get in here and start playing around in this a little bit. But this is, I would akin this to like forensic accounting. Sometimes you have to really, really dig and find something to figure out what you're looking for. Most of the time, what you're trying to find in here is you're either trying to find a deed, you're trying to find covenants, which property associated with this person, and especially when you're doing a listing, you're trying to find covenants. It is not as easy. It's not as easy as going over here and just saying, "Hey, let's look at Quail Creek Estates." Well, there's how many different oops, let's do Quail Creek Estates. And I go down here and I try to say covenants. It could be same thing, covenants. Sorry, I apologize. I'm not used to using this computer. If you notice, there's covenants. There's covenants around with the land. There's restrictions. Sometimes they call them restrictions. Where is it? Restrictions. Well, which one are you picking? And if the more stuff you try to submit in details on these things, most of the time when you're going to get this blank answer back. Trying to find covenants on this is very, very difficult. So I'm going to show you a trick on that one. In the meantime, if you know your, let's just pick a. Let's go back and find my deed. And this is, I said, this is, the idea is here to try to find some covenants for my property. I apologize, I can't read the screen. Okay. So here's my deed right there. And it's got a PDF version. So a lot of times what you'll find is just go look at the deed, and on that it's going to mention the recorded, the plat, the number, lot number, all that stuff you expect to see in a deed. But you'll also typically will see subject to restrictions and covenants for that property. And use a lot of times on this is interesting. This deed is it's pretty basic. A lot of times you'll find on a deed a instrument number for the covenants. If you can find that, then you're golden, because otherwise it's very difficult to find deeds. And I'm going to go back here.
That was the instrument in the image you had pulled up. The instrument number was a number at the top right.
That's for the deed. But a lot of times in here it's gonna reference it. For some reason, this is a bad example because I just pulled mine up and it did not. It didn't have the instrument number on the covenants. So I'm going to try to find another example.
Hey, John, did you put Quail Creek Estates in as the grantor?
No, I did not. And that's what I said. I'll show you a couple ways to try to find that. And you can do that, and that's a great lead in. So if you type in here Quail Creek, you're probably going to find. Okay, in this case, great. You have Quail Creek Estates. You've got restrictions right there, and that's one way to find it. Most of the time, when you try to do that, a lot of times you're not going to find the covenants or restrictions there. You got to go dig and find an instrument number on a deed, And so I'll show you that. But this is, I thank you. That's a great, where are we here? Here's the map. It should be a recorded plat. In this case, it's specifically which phase is this. There's about 13 phases in Quail Creek, just FYI. So that's one way to do it if you know the subdivision name. But a lot of the times when you try to type the subdivision name, you get nothing. And so what I'm going to show you how to do that is if I can find a deed that has a, let's do this, Jones. I apologize. I should have had an example pulled up. Deed. Okay, here's one right here. So in this case, here is deed. This is a good example of a deed. Declaration of covenants and conditions for Steel Branch subdivision in instrument number, and there's the instrument number. So you take this instrument number, sometimes if you can't find it under Steel Branch, so we're going to search Steel Branch, will you write that number down? Right, 112-4044. And then write this number down too, 116-3485. Because we're gonna go back here, and because that was in Steel Branch. What was that? Steel Branch subdivision. Okay, so we're gonna go back and do a search for Steel Branch subdivision. And I'm hoping this is the ones that doesn't show up, but Steel Branch. Okay, this one actually did. This one has restrictions, has the map. So that's actually good. There's a lot of older subdivisions that won't have that. Let's just assume we couldn't find it. We searched the Steel Branch, we didn't find it. If we go down here and type in the instrument number, what was that?
112-4044.
Sometimes you can, and maybe search the subdivision there. Sometimes you can just type the instrument number and pull that, and boom, there's the restrictions for Steel Branch. So if you try to search for the covenants and you don't find it under the name, try to find a deed with an instrument number, search the instrument number, and there it is right there. Okay, and then obviously you can print this as a PDF, save it, and put it in. I would definitely put this in covenants. I would highly recommend using this and putting this in the MLS in documents, as well as obviously save it in your .loop or whatever DocuSign, whatever system you're using to store documents. But I would throw a copy of these covenants out there. I would also, if you're listing a property, I would also make sure that you don't just go throw this out there on your own. You ask the seller, hey, are these the proper covenants for your subdivision? And have that in email where they reply back, yes, these are the proper covenants. So that way you have a, yes, this is what the seller said the covenants were versus me just throwing this out there. Does that make sense? Again, I would highly recommend don't try to do so many refinements down here. I'm only looking for deeds, or I'm only looking for mortgages. I'm only looking for that. I would try to limit your search up here. The more you limit it, the more likely you're going to get what you need to find. And I hate to say it like that, but what was that number again? No, let's do this. Peacock.
112-4044.
And if we go down there, we put covenants. If it's not recorded as a covenant, it's not going to come up with anything. In this case, this is something totally different. It's not the right answer. So by adding additional information, you actually got yourself lost. By taking this, and now if it may be recorded under restrictions, it possibly is. But why would you want to go add more information to try to find it when you don't need to? Okay, there, it happened to be under restrictions. So the easiest thing to do is just don't put limiting factors down here unless you just can't find anything else. Or you can try it first, but don't get frustrated if you don't find anything. Start taking your search back to a higher level. Okay, but one of the tricks that saved me quite a bit is if for some reason you do a subdivision, you can't find covenants. Give me a name of another subdivision. Hollowbrook. Okay, in this case, deed maps. It looks like it's got a maps, but I don't see any covenants. So it looks like it's got a subdivision map, a plat map, which is great. I would throw that on your MLS as well. Let me get rid of some of these things. But it does, as you see, that this list, it does not have, doesn't have the restrictions. If I go into a deed, in Hollowbrook, I go into a deed, that's where I would just try to find restrictions and covenants. Oh, slide book, okay. It doesn't have a instrument number. It has a slide book. Can you write that down for me? 2137-C.
Dash who?
C.
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 Okay.
Yeah. Restrictions, covenants, conditions, and easements that's contained in certain instrument recorded in plat recorded in slide book 2137-C. Okay. So it doesn't have an instrument. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. I take that back. Here are covenants. There's your instrument number 599025. So in this list, it did not have covenants. But now if I go back here and I get rid of Hollowbrook again, and then type that instrument number, what was that?
599025.
There's covenants. And in this case, all right. So in this case, I would have to do probably a little bit more digging because I don't see that. I'm not sure what these covenants are. I might look at it and see. Yeah, this one didn't get it. But this is a good example of, okay, typed in Hollowbrook, it gave me a plat map, but it didn't give me the covenants. And so then I typed in that instrument number and it didn't give me the covenants there. So now I'm going back, maybe back to that Hollowbrook and find another deed and see if I can get some instrument numbers. Or what was that slide?
2137. C.
This section right, this is the last thing I want to talk about real quickly, because this is where this is probably a very powerful search tool. A lot of people don't know how to use this section right here. I'm sorry, this book type. It gives you the instructions to fill in right here. Book types, real property, miscellaneous, all that stuff. The book type first, it said it was a slide map, right? So you go down to this little key right here and type S for slides. And then book, what did it say?
2137.
2137.
C.
And I'm just going to leave it like that, and that may be a page or a book. So it said slide book. I'm going to I want to assume that that's actually a page number, 2137. Hit submit there. Hey, come on in.
This is video, right?
Yes, I think. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure on that one.
I was counting on it, I hope so.
So that section there, if you know how to type in, use these slides. Let's try this 2137. Let's see if that was a book number or slide. It didn't really indicate. And it's still not getting us what we need. So in this case, I might go to Hollowbrook. This says phase 3. Where's what was that? Hollowbrook phase 1. Let's try that one. See, it's still not getting to, and I'm glad it's kind of doing this, because I've done this so many times where it takes me about 30 minutes to keep digging and digging and find instrument numbers or slide numbers to where I can type and put the in this and actually find the covenants for a subdivision.
So is it a law or something that they've got to add the covenants to the database here?
They should, if they're recorded, they should be in there.
And so if we're not finding it, we just know we got to keep
looking. You got to keep digging. And I have spent, sometimes I've spent 30, 40 minutes trying to dig and find covenants. And sometimes I get frustrated and I stop and I go back later and come back and try to dig and find them. But if you can dig enough on a deed and you can find instrument numbers, usually that's the best way to find it. The first thing I would do is what you mentioned. The first thing I would do is you can either search by subdivision here or search. Get rid of this. Just start your search off basic. Let's try Hollowbrook here. I think we just did this and didn't come up with anything, right? Try Hollowbrook there. And if you don't find your covenants and restrictions, oh, here we go, second page, covenants. Now you got to make sure it's the right phase. But if you don't find them this way, at that point, start doing searching deeds for instrument numbers. Try that. Several different ways to get in here. But it's not always as easy as just typing it in and pulling it up. A lot of the subdivisions, they do have those. Some of them they don't because they're not recorded. I'm sure this has been changed over time. If they got recorded 20 years ago, it's probably not the way they record stuff today. Okay. What other questions? Are there any other, from just maybe some of the other agents that have used this before? Is there any other things that you do on this or want to talk about real quick? Since apparently team meeting is, do we have team meeting today? That got moved every other week. I think it got moved every other week, so maybe.
Hey, John, it's every other week now, every 2 weeks.
Okay, because so we could spend a little bit more time. I was waiting to be kicked out of this room at 11 o'clock.
No, it's every time.
Is there any other questions or any other things that you use on this that we want to talk about?
If you grab covenants or restrictions and you post that in the MLS and you think it's correct, and you end up finding out that there's a update or something you weren't aware of,
Just
liable that or
well, here's one of the things I would always do on your MLS. When you post information, you give information. Remember, it's up to the buyer to determine. When you post information out there, I would always in your MLS include a caveat under the agent section.
Yeah.
Stating
they got verified. I
yeah, just information deemed reliable. However, buyer or buyer's agent to determine. Just a kind of a little catch-all, just to make sure that everyone understands that. Yeah, I'm doing this as a service. I'm helping, trying to help. But look, if you want to verify this, you need to verify this on your own. But I would always ask the seller in an email is this the proper covenants to verify? It goes back, so that way it shifts it back to this is what the seller gave me. And I'm not trying to shift blame on anybody else, but you definitely want to protect yourself.
Well, it's helping you be more confident in the fact that you're providing the right information.
From a standpoint of as a buyer's agent, I would always try to get covenants to the buyers. A lot of times they're going to ask for them anyway. A lot of the title company should always give a copy of the covenants to the buyer at closing. But I don't want to be at a closing table. That's the first time the buyer's seen covenants, and then there's something in there that they find offensive.
Yeah.
And they're going to look at you and say, why didn't you tell me about this? There's also, I've run across situations where the listing agent has stated there are no covenants. There is no HOA and there's no covenants. And it turns out there are covenants. So this is a way as a buyer's agent, you can go try to dig yourself if they say there's no covenants. And I can assure you, you will find situations that you cannot find the covenants because they're recorded under some specific name. But that's where kind of going through a deed search and finding instrument numbers might help you. But I have actually run across one deal, and it turned out it was my brother's, was a buyer. There were no covenants. I looked, the listing agent said there's no covenants. The seller said there's no covenants. The title company found covenants. And fortunately, it wasn't anything offensive to the buyer at the closing table, because that would have been a really bad deal. But so I would always try to find covenants, whether you're the buyer side or the listing side.
Must have been your older brother.
It was. Only one I got. Only one I got. Anything else as far as search options, what you guys want to use it for? Any other ideas or comments from anybody?
Well, the thing I learned is putting the subdivision name in the guarantor guarantee. I've been putting it in the subdivision name, and nothing comes up.
Well, and a lot of times you can find it. So let's type in Quail Creek. If you notice this, there's how many different Quail Creeks, and sometimes it's hard to figure out which one, unit what. Let's just do this unit, Quail Creek Estates, the 5. I don't even know what that is. There is, I think there's about 14 phases in Quail Creek. So trying to get the right one. Sometimes the only way you can figure that out is by looking at a plat map, or going to CRS for for that property.
Mhm.
In the legal description, sometimes it'll say lot 243 in phase, whatever.
Yeah.
And that can help direct you here.
Mhm.
But if you just type Quail Creek and hit submit, it might take you, number one, several minutes to go through all the different things. And are you even going to find the covenants in here? Chances are probably not. Because I've been through this so many times, probably not. So that's where the common mistake is. People start right here in the subdivision, which makes sense. And then they'll go down here and limit it. I just look at covenants for that subdivision and they don't find anything. They get frustrated and give up. So that's where either put it up here. If you can't find it that way, go into a deed, get an instrument number, try to find it that way.
Okay, that's good.
And if you do have information like that, the book number, slide number, sometimes you can see things that say, hey, it's on a map. It's on a map page 47. Go in here and just use this section here. Slides or maps, type is S. If it's page, say 700, our book 700 page, whatever, you can hit that, you can hit enter and it'll pull information there up. And that's not as clean and easy, but sometimes you can find things that way too. Okay. What other questions on Baldwin County or Delta Computer Systems? Anything? Okay. If you have any questions in the future, obviously give me a call. Any agent that's been doing this a while has probably been on these sites so many times. They could do it in their sleep. So if this is the first time you're seeing it, I'm glad you saw it. And I would definitely recommend going playing around on it. Pull up your own house or apartment, whatever, play around on it, and just get used to the fact where you can print. And you can print whether it's you want a JPEG version or whether you want a PDF version. Obviously in MLS, you can only put pictures. In .loop or DocuSign, you can't put pictures, you have to use PDF, so have the ability to switch back and forth there. And then you can search on this through PPIN numbers, parcel numbers, owners' names, whatever.
How often, what percentage of the time would you say that there'd be a plat map for that subdivision or that phase?
I would say close to 100%. I mean, if it's,
Okay.
yeah, they especially, I mean, I've looked at subdivisions that were done in Lillian in the 60s.
Mhm.
There's recorded plat maps.
Okay.
And you can find those, obviously plat maps and the covenants and restrictions, what I use that, and then finding the deed
Mhm.
to make sure that the person signing a list agreement is on the deed.
All right.
You can find that. You can find the deed though in the CRS section. You look up the property, go into CRS, look at the property.
Yeah.
That's easy, and that's usually where I start there. But trying to find covenants, restrictions, and plat maps, that's where I go into Delta
Okay,
Computer
good.
Systems. Okay. Okay.
Good job, John.
All right.
John. Thank you, John.
No worries. Enjoy your day.
You too.
All right.
Hey, who won that game last night?
Hey, it wasn't Auburn and it wasn't Ohio State. That was an awesome game.
That was.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know.